All right, so here's what we're actually going to cover in this video. All right, I'm going to walk you through every single part of my business that helped me sell 106 homes. So literally, you can just watch this video and copy exactly what it is that that I did. So I've got a screenshot of my production for Real Trends magazine. So at the time, I did 106 units, and I'm in Michigan, right? So I don't have high price points like some of you do. So it was about $21 million in sales volume. And so what I'm going to cover in this video is I'm going to break down the 106 sales, where they came from, how I generated $621,000 in income. Then I'm going to break down all of my lead generation systems. Then we'll break down all of my lead follow-up systems, my client acquisition process, and then my team structure. So as I go through all of this, certainly if you ever find yourself to the point where you want help to implement any of this, I'd love to have a conversation with you. If you want to talk about coaching, just go to reverseselling.com. You can schedule a coaching consultation with me and my team, and we can have a conversation about potentially working together. All right. So let's jump into this thing. So first off, let's break down the sales. Where did the business come from? So 106 of those units were listings by me specifically. I'll talk about what happened on the buy side in just a second. And so here's the breakdown. 18% came from my sphere of influence or past clients. And that was 19. 53% or 53% came from unpaid direct outbound, which the makeup of that was 23 for sale by owners, 17 expired listings, 11 absentee owners, 6 probate, and that makes up the outbound piece of my business. Then 15% of the business came from referral partners. So specifically for me, it was 9 divorce listings and 7 probate listings. These were from divorce attorneys and probate attorneys. These are people I have relationships with. We'll talk about more later in the video about those relationships. But these were inbound referrals from what I call my referral partner system. All right. And then as we move forward, when we look at paid outbound, I had 8 closings from my Google Pay Per Click campaign and 6 from ZBuyer. We'll talk more about those sources in just a second. Now, on the buyer side of the business, so in addition to the 106 closings that I did personally, we also did 42 buy-side transactions with my full-time buyer's agent, which we'll talk more about her in just a second as well. 60% of those closings were sellers who also had to buy. That's the beautiful thing about building a listing agent business. And then the other 16 came from what we call unpaid inbound. So this unpaid inbound approach is specifically from open houses or sign calls. Although there's a ton of different ways to generate leads to come to you, this is just simply what we did. All right. So we had 106 units on the listing side and then 42 closings on the buy side. That's the sales breakdown. Now, let's break down each lead generation pillar and some of the tactics and strategies. So first off, let's talk about the sphere of influence past client database. This is where I think a lot of agents struggle. They want business from this source the most, but they just don't have a system around how to actually go and get it. So the whole foundation starts with a weekly video newsletter email that gets sent out to the entire database every single week. So every week, I'm shooting a unique piece of content in video format. And then we also add copy to that newsletter, and that goes out to the database every single week. Then every week, I do a Facebook, Instagram live show. So for years and years and years and years, I would do this on Thursday nights where I would produce a live real estate show and talk about what was happening in the local market, talk about different local businesses, interview local businesses in my area. And this is how I was able to create an audience in my local market, create a following in my local market, a way to stay top of mind and bring awareness around my personal brand was through my weekly Facebook, Instagram live show. Next is the monthly letter. So everybody in the database would get a monthly letter that essentially would break down each one of my weekly newsletter topics, right? So if I sent out 4 emails per month, the monthly letter, to keep things simple, because I need things simple to execute, that letter would essentially encapsulate all 4 of those topics in one letter with a call to action. Next is my quarterly client appreciation event. So every 90 days, doing a client event in person. Now, there's a million different things that we've done over the years, everything from renting out movie theaters to card night to poker night to euchre night to bingo to carnivals to pictures with Santa. I mean, on and on and on and on. But every 90 days, doing a client appreciation event. Some were big and some are small. Some are just 5-6 people at my house that I cook dinner for. Some were a huge event, like my kickball tournament that people absolutely love every year, where we do kids versus the parents. So every 90 days is a client appreciation event. Everybody in the database goes on what we call our birthday recognition system. So we recognize people within inside of our database, our past client center of influence, on their birthday as much, or I would even say more than I think people in their own family. So they go on a birthday system where they get a gift in the mail, they get a handwritten card, they get a video. I send them a video on their birthday every single year. And then lastly is the annual real estate review. Okay, this is hypercritical to have part of your past client center of influence database system every year, the same way your CPA does with you when they review your tax strategy and they review that with you, or your financial planner when they're reviewing, hey, here's what happened last year. Here's some things I think that we should change this year. I do the same thing because I believe that in real estate, we also have assets under management. Well, what the heck does that mean, Brandon? That means that for every home you sell, or for everybody in your database who has a home, these are the assets in which I believe we are responsible for helping these people manage. So when I say assets under management, I treat it the same way a financial planner does, where I sit down with all of my past clients and my top 100 inside of my sphere of influence, and I meet with them and we review what's going on with the value of their home. We do any type of rate reduction conversation when it comes to the mortgage. We do an equity planning for the year. We look at any home improvements and where to get that money. We look at any debt reduction strategies. We look at any potential tax strategies. So an opportunity for me to introduce them to a referral partner like my CPA. So that's what I mean by annual real estate review. So now let's break down the unpaid direct outbound. All right. So it's simple. It's just not easy to do. I use Vulcan 7 to get all of my leads. There's a link to them in the description if you guys want to give them a shot. And here's how I communicate with all of those lead sources that I mentioned a minute ago. Is certainly calling them, all right, getting them on the phone. Those that I can't get on the phone, knocking the door. Video text message. So there's a specific, unique, what I call the sniper video text that I teach to all my coaching clients on exactly the type of message that we can send to a homeowner to get the homeowner to raise their hand to initiate a conversation with you. And so sending a video text out to all of your ideal client avatars, and then direct messaging on Facebook and Instagram is how I'm initiating those conversations with those homeowners. As far as referral partners go, so let's talk about this. So they all get, when I say all, the goal with referral partners is you can't just jump right into it and say, okay, I'm going to start getting referrals from this type of business owner and that type of business owner. It's going to take a little while, right? It's going to take a little while to build these relationships because you need to become what I call an extension of their offering. That is how you provide value to another business, is to become an extension of their business offering. Well, what do you mean, Brandon? Can you be a little bit more specific? Sure. What I mean by that is this. Think about in my case, probate attorney. Okay. So I work with a probate attorney that sends me a lot of business, and his business is predicated on the fact that a home has to be sold in order for that estate to be settled and in order for my referral partner, in this case, the probate attorney, to be paid. So I become an extension of his business offerings because as he is out there with his marketing and his lead generation efforts, and as he's acquiring new clients, part of his business offering is to introduce me to their client when it comes time to sell real property or real estate that's part of the estate that needs to be settled to close the probate case. That would be an example. Another example would be with divorce attorneys. Same thing. You've got a couple that can't agree on anything. So oftentimes the judge says, listen, you guys can't pick the real estate agent. The attorney then makes an introduction to, in this case, me. And this is a business offering that attorney can offer to his or her client as a value add, as an extension of the services that they offer. That is what I mean. And we have many, many different referral partners, but those are just some examples. So as you're starting to network and as you're starting to meet people like this that are in adjacent industries that need your help to service their client, we put them all on my weekly video email. I put them all on my social media so they can engage with my weekly Facebook or Instagram live show. I send them also the monthly letter that my past client database gets in my sphere of influence. And then I do a monthly happy hour with them. So every month I get them together in person as an opportunity to further the relationship, number one. And then number two, the way in which I help them grow their business on their side is by introducing them to my other referral partners that can help grow their business. Okay, so let me give you just another example. So when a greatest example of this would be working with a sales manager at an assisted living facility, which is there's one in every single corner. I partner with a lot of them, and I may introduce them to a life insurance salesperson who specializes in offering long-term care policies, right? Those two worlds collide all the time. Or I might introduce my estate planning attorney to my financial planner, right? Those two worlds collide all the time. And so I'm constantly making connections like this. I might connect my mortgage lender with my title partner. Happens all the time, right? So I use those monthly happy hours to deepen those relationships, and then I become the connector. And then those referral partners actually are major parts in my quarterly client appreciation events. Most of them are helping me to sponsor those. That's how we offset some of the marketing costs. And then they get to build their brand marketing to my client database as well. And they have the opportunity to also include some of their clients at our events. All right, so let's talk about paid outbound. So this is where I am investing dollars into lead sources, and then I'm reaching out to them to convert the lead. So with Google pay-per-click, we are advertising specifically for seller leads. And when we get those seller leads, the way in which we convert them is all through pretty much the same way as unpaid direct outbound. We're calling, texting, and door knocking with every lead that we get on a paid Google lead. And we use a company called Apex Lead Source to do that. Excuse me. And then ZBuyer. So we get a lot of seller leads from ZBuyer, and it's the same thing. We call, text, door knock every lead that we get from ZBuyer to convert them, to get them on a call, to set an appointment, to go through our client acquisition listing system, which I'll talk about that later in this video. All right, so we talked about where the business came from. We broke down some of the lead generation systems. Now let's talk about another big facet of the business if you're going to start to sell 40, 50, 80, 100 plus homes per year, which is lead follow-up. All right, so first off, it's critical that we spend a minute defining what a lead actually is. So to me, a lead, this is what I talk all about with the agents that I coach, a lead you have to define what it is. To me, there's 5 parts, okay? They have to have a specific reason for moving. Too many times, too many real estate agents are spending too much of their effort going after people that don't have real motivation. They spend their time talking to people that say, yeah, I'm going to move when interest rates change. I'm going to move when home prices do this, that, the other thing. I'm going to change when, and it's like, well, that's not, anybody that actually moves doesn't move because of what mortgage rates are. They just don't. I've never had a past client who say, Brandon, we're going to move the family because of rates. They move for a specific reason. The rates are what the rates are. So they have a specific reason on why they're selling something bigger, something smaller, a job transfer, etc. They have a specific time frame for when they want to do this, because people that move, right? People that don't have any time frame oftentimes don't have that much motivation. Number 3, they're not obligated to another agent. So in other words, they verbalize to you that they will, in fact, interview you when the time comes to list and sell their home. That is being more specific. And then number 4, they invite you to follow up. It's not you forcing the follow-up, which is what most agents do. Hey, great talking with you. I'll stay in touch with you. If you ever need anything, call me back. Yeah. And they get you off the phone. They never talk to you again. They end up in the witness protection program, right? So this is them inviting you to stay in touch. And then they give you a valid email, because what we're doing with all of our lead generation is we're growing a list. Remember, we're growing a list that we can communicate with for the rest of our career. That's how we define a lead. So there are 3 different types of lead types. There are hot leads. These are people that you can set an appointment with in the next 7 days. There are warm leads, people you can set an appointment with in the next 90 days. And then there are nurtures, people you can set an appointment with in the next year. And then I don't go over that. All right. So I'm not a huge proponent of focusing on people that say, yeah, I'm looking to move in probably the next 5 to 10 years. That's fine. You can collect their email address and put them on your weekly email. That's pretty leveraged. That's fine. But they're not going to go into the follow-up system that we're going to talk about right now if they're more than a year out. All right. So as we look at this and we say, okay, let's look at the lead follow-up system. When we look at hot leads I call every day, because they have the opportunity to set an appointment in the next 7 days. I'm going to communicate with them pretty aggressively, and I'm going to touch base with them on a daily basis until I set that appointment. All right. That's number 1. Number 2, they're also going to go on my weekly email that we talked about. They're also going to go into my 8-week direct mail campaign. We use a company called Mailbox Power to send these out. It's a fully automated direct mail system. There's a link to them in the description. You guys can check them out. And then they also get a weekly text message. And then I add them all on social media so that they can start to engage with me with more leverage. They can participate in my weekly show. They can start to see some of my content. This is all part of the nurturing system to help convert them into a high quality listing appointment. All right. Now with warm leads, it's very similar, but I call them weekly. They go on my weekly email. I also send them the 8-week direct mail campaign. They get a weekly text. We add them on social media. So the only difference is doing a weekly call versus the daily call. With seller nurtures, we call them every month. They go on the weekly email strategy, the video weekly email that we talked about. They go on a 12-month direct mail system. That's all. So we build all of these out for our coaching clients through Mailbox Power, and you pretty much hit a button and we automate the whole thing. And so that's what I mean by direct mail campaign. It's kind of like a drip campaign for emails through the mailbox. We also add them on social so that they can participate and they can engage with our content for however long it takes for us to nurture them until they become a highly qualified listing appointment. So now let's get into what I call the client acquisition system. So what I mean by client acquisition system is specifically what happens when one of these people are ready to meet. How is it that we're converting a lead into a paying client? That's what I mean by client acquisition. So the first thing that I do is I send an email to that client to confirm. And in that email has a link to my video introduction it's a video where I do my introduction, and I'm introducing myself, explaining what's going to happen when we meet. I'm breaking down some of the tactics and strategies I'm going to walk them through when we do meet, because I'm trying to keep the curiosity loop as big as possible to increase my appointment set to my appointment met ratio. All right. That's the first thing I do. Number 2 is hand deliver a pre-listing packet that outlines my marketing systems. It outlines past client testimonials. It outlines my value offer. It outlines some of my pricing systems. It outlines, it has a letter included, talks about some gratitude and looking forward to the opportunity to earning their business. So I kind of frame the appointment the correct way. Then once I actually get on the appointment, here's the process I go through. All right. So first thing I do is I do the tour with the seller. We walk through the property. I take this opportunity to learn about the property, ask questions about the property, digging deep on renovations or potential issues. And this is where I'm really trying to connect with the homeowner. The next thing I do is, once we're done with that home tour, is I set the agenda. Essentially, if you're a coaching client watching this, you're going to understand this, but I walk them through what I call the haunted house. And so I set the agenda in a way that lowers all of their anxiety for this appointment and actually gets them excited with all that we're going to cover. And it makes, oftentimes sellers have given me feedback for years that when I set this agenda, they felt so much more at ease. It brought down any tension that might have been in the air, and it helps to start off the meeting the right way. Then I do something extremely important. If you're not doing this, I would start to implement this right away, is I gain their permission to tell them the truth. And the way I do this is I bring a list of expired listings that failed to sell and break that down as to why those properties failed to sell. And I get the seller's permission to tell them the truth so that we can break through all the BS and all the posturing and all that stuff. And we can just have an honest conversation around what it's going to take to get their property sold. And the reason I do this is to set myself apart from my competition that they might be talking to. Because what do most agents do? Well, let's be honest. Most agents are telling sellers what they think they want to hear in hopes that they get the listing. So they will inflate the price, make the process seem better than it is, although it's very hard. They'll discount their commission next to nothing, and they'll make things seem better than they will be. And this is why a lot of agents struggle to get their property sold, right? And so when I do that with a seller, the seller says, yeah, it makes sense. They don't say this to me, but it's a seed of doubt that I place in the seller's mind that raises a red flag every time they meet with an agent, and the agent starts to get a little bit overzealous, and they know, oh, this guy's just selling too hard. We know exactly what this guy's doing. And so I plant that seed in their head. Next, I walk them through our pricing presentation system. Okay. So this is how we win a ton of business. So we go through, first off, a market snapshot. So this is the first time we give a bird's eye view to the seller on what's happening literally in their local neighborhood. They get to see the market through a different lens that they've never seen before. Then I walk them through selling the property 3 times. Most sellers have no idea about that process. They have no clue when we bring up this point in the presentation with selling the property not once, not twice, but 3 times. The seller's like, wow, that makes a lot of sense. Then we go through what I believe to be one of the most important pieces in the entire listing presentation, which is the days on market presentation. So we walk them through a framework rather, of them actually being the buyer in the existing marketplace and having them understand how the market works based on timeframes, so that we can use the Socratic method to get the seller to understand the importance of timing when it comes to generating the highest quality offer on their property without having to tell them what to do. Then we go into the price bracketing system so they can understand how buyers actually search for homes and how we want to be positioned in the marketplace with the right buyers because when we do this right, this allows us to get into the next step, which is the active buyer analysis. Now we can actually get into even more specifics to show a seller, here are the active, most qualified buyers that have the potential to purchase your home versus this bracket, versus that bracket. And so when we talk about positioning, this is the first time a seller has ever heard this from an agent. Heck, this is the first time maybe you have ever heard this as an agent. So we break down where all of the active buyers are right now based on showing activity. And then we can clearly show the price bracketing system as it correlates to the active buyers for their property, and clearly articulate to the seller how the property must be positioned. And this is how we stand out from our competition. Then we go through the active listing analysis, oftentimes showing the client in person the active listings that we will compete with, like physically showing them. We walk them through the property. All right. Then we do a pending and sold audit. And then followed. So once we get through that pricing presentation, sellers' minds are blown. Then we get into the risk reduction conversation. So we have a certain way that we position ourselves at the appointment to take away any and all risk a seller would have to hire me on the spot, where they say, this is a no-brainer. This is crazy. I can't believe you are doing that. I can't believe you're willing to offer that. And so this is how we provide real tangible value. I call it the value ladder. And the way we do this is by reducing the risk and increasing the certainty that we are in fact going to get their property sold at a price that works for them or more. And when we go through this risk reduction system, the seller's like, this is a no-brainer. I'd love to hire you. And then lastly, I go through the plan of action. So once we go through a pricing process where the seller can actually make sense of this market, and then I go through the risk reduction and reduce all of the friction and all of their potential risk to hire me. And then I go through this plan of action outlining exactly what's going to happen. And we're essentially walking them through the new listing system to help them understand, okay, I know exactly when this date's going to be and that date's going to be and when that's going to happen and how that's going to happen. They have no more stress or anxiety. And this is how I enroll clients the way that I do. And so that's the client acquisition system. All right. Lastly, I want to talk about team structure. So it's me as the listing agent or CEO, and I can produce at this level with a small team with a licensed assistant. All right. The reason why I believe the licensed assistant in this model is so important, I pay her $80K a year, and it's because what I'm about to show you. So she does all the listing coordination. She does the offer negotiations, which allows me to focus on getting more clients. And then she focuses on the entire client experience when we list a property. She's doing all the inspection negotiations. She's doing all the appraisal negotiations. She's doing all the closing coordination. So the time we get a new client, I don't think about this. I don't even hear about it until a closing is scheduled. And so now we have what we call specialization. Everybody is specializing in their role. And so I focus on getting listings. She focuses on getting those listings to the closing table with everything in between, all license activity. That's why the license is so key. She does all of our marketing. She helps with client events, all that stuff. And then lastly is a full-time buyer's agent. Okay. So I mentioned the buy side business in the beginning of this video. I have my buyer's agent on 50-50 split. We did 42 deals, just over 13 million in volume. It was about 400,000 in GCI, which we split. She makes 200K a year. She gets pretty much all of her business through our partnership. So it makes sense. She's making 200 grand a year. A lot of agents struggle to get to six figures. And so it's a no-brainer for us to do this. And then she's also responsible for all of our open house and buyer activities. So that's the structure that I just walked you guys through, the exact framework on how I sold over 100 homes in 1 year. The goal of this video is for you to take some of these systems and frameworks and start to implement them. I understand you're not going to do all of this from day one. I get it. You're not going to be able to implement everything we talked about in today's video. I get it. But this is a start to see, okay, I can start to picture what this business can look like when I start to scale.